Have you ever found yourself wondering, do they miss me yet? You replay old texts, check their social media, or think about when they'll realize what they lost. It's natural to feel that way, to want to know if they're thinking about you. But here's something you might not have considered. The more you wait for someone to miss you, the less likely they actually will. In today's world, we've been conditioned to seek validation from others. It's easy to think that if we just hold on long enough, they'll come around, regret their actions, and realize what they've lost. But true power doesn't come from waiting. In fact, waiting for someone to miss you only gives them control over your emotions, and that's the exact opposite of what the Stoics taught. The Stoics understood that our happiness and peace shouldn't depend on anyone else's validation. The real secret to making them miss you isn't found in your actions or in waiting. It's in your absence. When you create true space in your life, not just by physically disappearing, but by living your life with purpose, that's when they begin to feel the void you've left behind. In this video, I'll share with you the Stoic wisdom behind how and when they truly start missing you, and how you can use this knowledge to reclaim your power. It's not about being passive or playing games. It's about living your life fully and allowing them to realize what they lost when you're no longer waiting for them. Let's explore how absence, self-worth, and focusing on your own journey can create the conditions where they can't help but start wondering, what happened to them? Part 1. The illusion of waiting. Stop checking for validation. The truth about waiting for someone's attention. Have you ever found yourself obsessively checking your phone, waiting for that message, that call, or even that like on social media? You know the feeling, the one where you keep replaying old texts, thinking that any moment now they'll reach out, and while you're waiting, you're putting your life on hold, your happiness in limbo, just hoping that they'll notice. But here's the hard truth. The more you wait for them to validate you, the more power you give away. What if I told you that waiting for someone else's attention is an illusion? You see, in Stoic philosophy, we learn that true peace comes from within, from focusing on what we can control, not what we can't. And you can't control someone else's actions, thoughts, or feelings. Waiting for someone to reach out, to miss you, or to come back on their own terms only makes you emotionally dependent. The longer you do this, the less control you have over your own emotional well-being. Waiting for validation traps you in a cycle. The cycle is familiar. You put your life on pause. You check their social media. You wonder if they're thinking about you. And in doing so, you give them control over your peace. You tell yourself, if they just reach out, things will get better. But the truth is, nothing changes. Every time you check for validation, you're reinforcing the idea that your happiness depends on them. But it doesn't have to be this way. Think about it. When you're waiting for someone to validate you, you're not really living for yourself. You're living for their approval, their acknowledgement. Your peace is tied to something you can't control, and in that, you lose your sense of self-worth. You lose your power. True strength comes from within, from knowing that your worth is not determined by someone else's actions. What if you stopped waiting? Now imagine for a moment, if you stopped waiting for them to validate you, what would happen if you chose to take control of your own peace and happiness? The Stoics taught us to focus on what's within our control, our thoughts, our responses, our actions. You cannot control whether they miss you or reach out, but you can control how you choose to respond to the situation. When you stop waiting, something shifts. You start living your life on your own terms, not waiting for a signal from someone else. You start to recognize your own value, your own worth, and suddenly, the power isn't in their hands. it's in yours. Living for yourself brings clarity. The moment you stop looking to someone else for validation, you begin to see clearly. You can see your life, your goals, and your dreams with fresh eyes. You can focus on what really matters, your own growth, your own peace. This is where real power comes from. When you stop waiting for their approval, you start to realize that your happiness has always been within your reach. And when you begin to thrive in your own life, when you start living with purpose, following your passions, and embracing who you truly are, you create a magnetic energy. They start to notice. Not because you're trying to get their attention, but because you're no longer dependent on it. You become someone who doesn't need validation to feel good about themselves, and that, in itself, is the most powerful shift you can make. You are the author of your own story. No one else can write your story for you. You are the one who decides how you show up in the world, what you focus on, and what you value. Stop giving your power away by waiting for someone else to make you feel seen or loved. Instead, take responsibility for your own emotional well-being. When you stop checking for validation, you free yourself. You free your mind from the chains of dependence, and you begin to live with intention. This shift doesn't just change how you view relationships, it changes how you view yourself. You start to recognize that your worth isn't based on someone else's approval. You are enough just as you are. The Stoic lesson: focus on what you control. Marcus Aurelius, a key Stoic philosopher, once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." When you focus on waiting for someone else's validation, you are giving away your control, your peace, and your happiness. But when you turn inward and focus on what you can control, you regain that power. You can't control others, but you can control your own actions, your growth, and your emotional state. Stop waiting. Start living. The path to freedom and emotional peace is found in the moment you decide to stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You are already enough. Live for yourself, embrace your journey, and focus on your own growth. The more you live your truth, the more you will attract the people who appreciate you for who you truly are. In the end, waiting for someone to miss you is not the key. The key is to stop waiting, to stop giving away your power, and to start living for yourself. When you do that, the right people will come into your life, and they will miss you in a way that matters, because they will miss the authentic, powerful version of you, the one who no longer waits for anyone to validate their worth. Part 2. Absence is the true power. Creating real space. The power of stepping back. Have you ever noticed how much more you seem to appreciate something when it's no longer available? The space, the quiet, the absence of something or someone can have a profound impact. This is true in relationships as well. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back and create space. It's not about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about allowing the other person to feel the weight of your absence. The Stoics understood this deeply. True power is not about clinging to others or waiting for their validation. It's about having the courage to step back and allow them to experience the void you've left behind. When you create this kind of emotional space, you force them to confront their feelings and realize what they might be losing. Absence isn't about distance, it's about emotional presence. There's a big difference between physical absence and emotional absence. You can still be around, but if you're emotionally engaged only on your terms, you create a space that's deeply felt. It's when you stop orbiting around someone else's world that they begin to realize they no longer have access to your energy, your attention, and your emotional availability. Think about it for a moment. When you're always present, always available, always responding immediately, it's easy for others to take you for granted. They know they can reach out to you at any time, and they start to assume that you will always be there. But when you create real space, when you let them feel your absence, they are forced to acknowledge the change. They begin to feel the weight of your presence, or lack thereof, and that's when they start to wonder, where did they go? What happened? Absence brings clarity. Absence isn't about shutting someone out or cutting them off. It's about shifting your focus back to yourself. When you create space, you give yourself the opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to build your life independent of them. This isn't an act of revenge, it's an act of self-respect. When you stop giving your energy away so freely, you open up space for growth, for self-discovery, and for your own peace. By stepping back, you allow the other person to reflect on the value of your presence in their life. It's not about punishing them, it's about giving both you and them the chance to realize what's important. Real absence creates real clarity. You can't expect someone to miss you if you're always there to fill the emotional space. When you're gone, even for a moment, they begin to feel your absence in a way that is impossible when you're constantly available. The art of detachment. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, is not about shutting people out emotionally. It's about not allowing others to dictate your emotional state. When you detach, you take control of your peace and your emotions. This doesn't mean you don't care or that you become cold. It means you choose not to let your sense of self-worth depend on someone else's actions. Imagine what would happen if you stopped looking for external validation. What if you stopped constantly giving your energy away and instead focused it inward? You would begin to realize that your worth is not attached to anyone else. Detaching from needing someone else to fill that emotional void gives you the freedom to discover who you are and what truly brings you peace. When you stop constantly being there for someone, when you create emotional space, you free yourself from the burden of always pleasing them. And in doing so, you allow yourself to thrive, independent of their approval. It's not about withdrawing, it's about creating room for yourself to breathe, to grow, and to become who you were always meant to be. When they feel your absence, it changes the dynamic. The moment you step back and allow the absence to be felt, the dynamic of your relationship shifts. Suddenly, you stop being the person who is always available, always waiting, always trying to fix things. You create space for them to question their actions, their behavior, and their feelings. And in that moment, they might realize what they've taken for granted. But here's the key. You have to create that space in a healthy way. It's not about punishing them. It's about protecting your energy and allowing both of you the space to grow. You're not seeking their validation. You're seeking to live your life on your terms. And when they see you thriving without them, without needing their attention to feel whole, they can't help but wonder what they've lost. Your absence is a powerful message. The message you send when you create space is simple. You are worthy of respect, of attention, and of love without having to constantly prove it. Your absence speaks volumes. It says that your peace and happiness are not contingent on anyone else. You value yourself enough to step back and allow the other person to see your worth. And when they feel your absence, they are forced to confront the truth. They realize that they've lost something valuable, something they took for granted. Create space and watch how things shift. The next time you feel like you're waiting for someone's attention or affection, remember this: your absence is your most powerful tool. You don't have to chase or beg for someone to miss you. Simply create space in your life, step back, and allow them to feel the void. In doing so, you open the door for them to recognize your worth. And in the process, you will find your own peace and strength, independent of anyone else's validation. Part 3. The moment it hits them. When you start thriving without them. The power of your growth. There comes a moment in every relationship, a tipping point, when everything changes. It's the moment when you stop needing them, emotionally, mentally, or physically, and instead, you start living fully for yourself. When you start thriving without them, that's when the true shift happens. Have you ever felt like your life was on hold, waiting for someone to come back, or for them to acknowledge how much you've been there for them? You might have put your dreams, your passions, or even your own peace on pause, just hoping that someday they'd notice. But when you start thriving without them, that's when they begin to see you for who you truly are. This is a powerful realization. Your growth is not dependent on anyone else. The moment you begin to thrive in your own life, pursuing your dreams, investing in yourself, growing emotionally and mentally, you start to create a life that's rich with meaning, regardless of anyone else's presence or approval. And that's when it hits them. They begin to realize that you no longer need them to feel complete. It's not about revenge. It's about rediscovering yourself. Now let's be clear. This isn't about getting back at someone, playing games, or trying to make them jealous. This is about rediscovering yourself. When you stop waiting and start living for yourself, you begin to realize your own worth, your own potential. You don't need them to validate your progress. You don't need them to acknowledge your achievements. The Stoics believed that our peace of mind comes from within, not from the validation of others. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, reminds us that our happiness and fulfillment must come from our own sense of purpose, not from the approval of others. So when you begin to thrive on your own, not because you're trying to impress anyone or win them back, but because you are focusing on becoming the best version of yourself, that's when they start to feel it. They'll feel the absence, not just physically, but emotionally. They'll see that your life has gone on without them, and they'll start to wonder, what have I lost? The moment of realization for them. You might not know when it happens. It could be weeks, months, or even years later. But the moment it hits them is undeniable. It's when they realize that you've moved on, and you're better for it. You're thriving without them. And in that moment, they can no longer take your presence for granted. This moment isn't about them regretting their actions in the way you might expect. It's not about them apologizing or admitting they miss you. The true impact is in the quiet realization that you're living a fulfilling life without them. They see you standing tall, confident, and happy, not because of their validation, but because you've created a life that's all your own. When you start thriving without them, you show them that you were never truly dependent on their approval. Your happiness, your success, and your peace have always been in your hands. And that realization shifts everything. What happens when you stop needing them? The truth is, when you stop needing someone else to fulfill you, you regain your power. And it's in that power that they start to feel the weight of their absence in your life. This is when they begin to realize that they missed the chance to be part of your journey. It's not just about them realizing they miss you. It's about them realizing that they weren't the source of your happiness in the first place. The source of your happiness has always been within you. And that realization changes the entire dynamic. Focusing on your own growth creates a life they can't ignore. When you stop waiting for someone's validation and instead focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you don't just create a better life for yourself. You create a life that others can't ignore. They begin to notice your growth, your strength, and your peace. They see you taking charge of your own journey, and that's when the true impact of your absence begins to hit them. They may not admit it. They may not come back, but they will see you thriving, and they will feel the loss, not just of your presence, but of the version of you that no longer needs them to be whole. You are the author of your own story. By embracing your growth, by focusing on your own peace, and by no longer waiting for someone else's validation, you become the author of your own life. You are writing your own story, and you don't need anyone's approval to make it meaningful. And when you start thriving, you give others the opportunity to realize that the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. You are worthy of love, respect, and joy. And the moment you stop depending on others to validate your worth, that's when the true power of your life and your presence is revealed. Part 4. The shift in power. When you stop needing them. The moment you take your power back. There comes a time in every relationship when you realize that your happiness and peace shouldn't depend on someone else. It's not a dramatic moment. It's a quiet realization, a subtle shift. It happens the moment you stop needing them. Have you ever found yourself bending over backwards for someone? You put your emotions, your time, and your energy into the relationship, all in the hope that they'll give you the same in return. But here's the thing. When you depend on someone else for your happiness, you're handing them the power to control how you feel. You're letting them determine your peace, your mood, and your sense of worth. But when you stop needing them, that's when the power shifts. This is where real change happens. You stop waiting for their approval, their affection, their attention. And in that moment, you reclaim your peace and your power. When you realize that you don't need anyone to feel whole, that's when you become the person who holds the key to your own happiness. Why does this shift matter? When you're emotionally dependent on someone, you're putting your own emotional well-being in their hands. The problem with this is that you cannot control how someone else behaves. You can't control whether they love you back, whether they appreciate you, or whether they choose to stay in your life. But when you stop needing them to feel complete, you are no longer at the mercy of someone else's choices. This is a powerful realization. You realize that your worth is not tied to someone else's actions. You are enough, just as you are. And this is where your true strength lies. You are in control of your own life, your own happiness, and no one else can take that from you. Taking control of your own narrative. The Stoics understood the importance of self-sufficiency. They taught that we should rely on our inner strength and wisdom, not on the fleeting approval of others. When you stop needing someone to validate you, you're no longer trapped in the cycle of constantly seeking their attention. Instead, you start focusing on yourself, your goals, your values, and your own journey. This doesn't mean you stop caring about the person. It means you no longer give them the power to determine how you feel. You begin to create a life that is fulfilling on its own terms. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing, and instead, you start living. The moment you stop needing them to validate your worth, you stop living in their shadow. You no longer feel like you have to perform for their approval. You start making decisions for yourself, not for them. This shift in perspective brings incredible freedom. The more you focus on your own journey, the more they notice. It's amazing how powerful this shift can be. When you no longer need them, they start to notice. Why? Because you are no longer available emotionally in the same way. They see you living your life, pursuing your passions, and thriving without them. And in that moment, the dynamic begins to shift. They begin to realize that you're no longer reliant on them. You've become a person who is self-sufficient, someone who finds happiness from within. This makes you more attractive, not because of what you're doing for them, but because you're living a life that is fulfilling and meaningful without them. The power shift isn't about them, it's about you. You see, the shift in power isn't about making someone feel jealous or trying to manipulate the situation. It's about reclaiming your own strength. The moment you stop needing them, you no longer base your self-worth on their approval. This change is not just external, it's internal. You become the person who is grounded, who finds fulfillment in their own life, not in someone else's validation. You stop seeking external validation because you realize that you are already enough. You don't need anyone else to tell you that. This is when your inner strength begins to shine through. This is when you truly step into your own power. Embracing your independence. True independence isn't about being alone or isolating yourself from others. It's about recognizing that your happiness and self-worth come from within. You stop seeking someone else's approval, and instead, you become your own source of validation. You start making choices that align with your values, not with what others want or expect from you. This is the power of emotional independence. It's the freedom to live life on your terms, to make decisions that align with your inner truth. When you stop needing someone else to define your worth, you begin to live authentically, and that authenticity is magnetic. You are in control of your own story. At the end of the day, you are the author of your own story. When you stop needing someone else to determine your happiness or your worth, you take back control. You start to live for yourself. And when you do that, you attract the people who truly appreciate you for who you are, not because you need their approval, but because you are confident in your own worth. This shift in power is not just about relationships, it's about living with intention. By letting go of the need for others to define your value, you step into your own strength and you create a life that reflects who you truly are. When you stop needing them, that's when you truly begin to thrive. Part 5. Stop playing games. The power of living your life fully. the freedom of living authentically. Have you ever caught yourself in a cycle of trying to get someone's attention, playing games, or waiting for them to make the first move? It's exhausting, isn't it? You might think that by being aloof, by holding back, or by waiting for them to reach out, you can somehow make them miss you more or value you more. But the truth is, playing games only drains your energy and keeps you stuck in a cycle of uncertainty. What if I told you that the key to breaking free from this is to stop playing games altogether? What if the real power, the true attraction, comes from simply living your life fully, without needing anyone's approval or validation? This is where the real shift happens. When you stop playing games and start living authentically, you become the person you've always been meant to be. And that's the version of yourself that others will start to notice and respect. The Stoic approach to living fully. In Stoic philosophy, we learn that our power comes from being fully present and engaged in the life we have right now, rather than waiting for circumstances or other people to validate us. Marcus Aurelius and other Stoic philosophers believed that the only true way to live was to focus on what you control, your thoughts, your actions, and your mindset. You cannot control how others feel about you, but you can control how you live your life. So instead of waiting for someone else to make the first move or trying to manipulate the situation, choose to live with intention and purpose. Start focusing on yourself, your own passions, and your own journey. Whether it's pursuing your career goals, spending time on personal development, or engaging in hobbies that bring you joy, when you invest your energy in living fully for yourself, you stop being caught up in the external drama. Why playing games never works. When you play games, whether it's by holding back, being distant, or waiting for someone else to initiate, you're not living in your truth. You're holding yourself back from showing up authentically. This may feel like a strategy to get someone to miss you or to chase after you, but it actually creates more confusion and distance. People are drawn to authenticity. They can sense when you're being real, and they can sense when you're not. The games you play might bring short-term attention, but they won't create the genuine connection you're seeking. The more you engage in games, the more you lose touch with the person you are and the life you want to live. You're hiding your true self, waiting for someone else to decide if you're worthy. But when you stop playing games and start being authentic, you take control of the situation. You stop relying on others to define your worth, and instead, you embrace the power of living your life fully, on your own terms. Living fully means living for yourself, not for others. Think about it for a second. How much of your time and energy do you spend thinking about what someone else is doing, whether they like your posts or when they're going to reach out to you? How much of your life are you living for someone else's approval? What if you shifted your focus entirely? What if you stopped waiting for others to define your happiness and started living for yourself, for your own joy and fulfillment? Living fully means you stop waiting for permission. You stop holding back. You stop playing games. Instead, you dive into your passions, your goals, and your relationships with purpose and authenticity. When you live your life fully, you stop being dependent on others for your happiness. And that shift, that realization, is incredibly powerful. You no longer wait for someone to make you feel worthy or important. You're already living a fulfilling life, and that energy becomes magnetic. People are attracted to confidence and authenticity. Here's the truth: when you live fully, you become magnetic. People are naturally drawn to individuals who are not seeking approval, not playing games, and not waiting for someone else to make them feel important. They are drawn to those who know their worth and who are living in alignment with their true selves. When you stop playing games, when you stop relying on external validation, you begin to live in a way that reflects your inner strength. This shift doesn't just change how you feel about yourself, It changes how others perceive you. They see someone who is confident, someone who doesn't need to chase or manipulate to get attention. They see someone who is living their truth and moving forward with purpose. And that's when the magic happens. The moment you stop seeking approval and start living fully for yourself, people start to notice. They begin to respect you more because they see that you're not waiting for them to complete your life. Instead, you are building a life that's already complete, on your own terms. Stop waiting. Start living. The key to a fulfilling life, to attracting healthy relationships, to feeling powerful in your own skin, is to stop waiting and start living. Don't wait for anyone's permission or validation. Don't play games. Don't hold back. Dive into your life fully, with intention, with purpose, and with confidence. This is your journey. The more you live it for yourself, the more you'll see the world and the people in it respond to you in a way that's grounded in respect and genuine connection. When you choose to live fully, you choose to live your life as the empowered person you are meant to be. And when you do that, you'll find that everything you were waiting for starts to come to you naturally. Part 6. The moment they realize your absence becomes the answer. The power of absence is often unnoticed until it's too late. Have you ever felt like you were giving everything to someone, yet they didn't appreciate it until you stopped giving? It's a hard truth, but it's also a powerful one. Sometimes it's only when you step away, when you create real absence, that people begin to understand your worth. This isn't about playing games. It's not about withholding your presence to manipulate someone or make them feel guilty. This is about something deeper, the realization that your absence can speak louder than any words you could say. When you stop showing up in the way they expect, when you stop being available on demand, they start to feel the void you've left behind, and that's when the truth hits them. They miss you. The moment your absence forces them to reflect. Think about the last time someone in your life was constantly there, always available, always at your service. It's easy to take them for granted, isn't it? They're just part of your routine, part of the background noise of your daily life. But the moment they step back, whether emotionally or physically, you start to notice. You begin to realize how much they really meant to you, because now there's a space where they used to be. Your absence creates the space they need to reflect. They begin to wonder, why aren't they here anymore? What happened to them? This is when they start to feel the loss, not because you're gone, but because the absence of your presence forces them to confront their own emotions. It's only then that they begin to see things clearly, perhaps for the first time. This is the power of absence. It's a quiet, powerful tool. You don't need to make a big dramatic statement. You don't need to yell or demand attention. All you have to do is live your life, focusing on your own happiness, and their perception of you will change. Absence makes them question their actions. The moment you pull back, when you stop chasing, when you stop offering your energy without getting anything in return, they start questioning their behavior. Why did they take you for granted? Why did they not appreciate your presence when they had it? They might not realize this immediately. It might take some time, but eventually they will begin to see that the space you left behind is not just an empty gap, it's the absence of something valuable. They will wonder if they made a mistake. They will wonder if they lost something important. And in that moment, your absence becomes the answer. It's not about making them feel bad or hoping for an apology. It's about them coming to terms with the fact that they failed to appreciate you when you were in their life, and now they're faced with the consequences of that oversight. Living without them is your way of reclaiming your power. When you stop showing up in the same way, when you stop being emotionally available on command, you're not punishing them. You're reclaiming your power. You're reclaiming your peace, your energy, and your focus. You're showing them that your worth is not defined by their attention or approval. This is where your strength comes from. You are no longer dependent on anyone else to validate your existence. Your life, your happiness, and your peace are all rooted within you. You are your own source of strength. Your absence is a reflection of your self-respect. By choosing to step back, you are showing them that you have boundaries. You have a life to live, and it doesn't revolve around them. This is not a statement of arrogance or anger. This is a statement of self-respect. You respect yourself enough to know that you are worth more than being an afterthought, someone who is always available when they feel like it. When they feel your absence, it forces them to confront the reality that they did not value you in the way they should have. They begin to question their own actions and priorities. And that moment of realization is your absence speaking volumes. When they miss you, it's a reflection of your growth. The key moment comes when they realize that you've moved on. You're no longer waiting for their validation. You're no longer depending on them for your happiness. You're living your life fully without them, and they start to miss what they once took for granted. But here's the twist. Their realization that they miss you isn't about you going back to them. It's about them seeing you as the person you've become, a person who no longer needs them to feel whole. This is where the real power lies. When you stop needing someone, you give them the space to miss the person you've become, and that person is someone who is strong, independent, and thriving. You don't need to do anything to make them miss you. Here's the beauty of it all. You don't need to act in any particular way to make them realize your worth. Your absence, your life, your growth, these things speak for themselves. When you stop showing up just to please them, when you start living fully for yourself, they will feel your absence in a way that no amount of words or gestures could make them feel. Your absence becomes the answer. In the end, the moment they realize your absence, they realize what they lost. They realize that the space you left was not an empty void. It was a space where something important used to be. It was the absence of someone who was worthy of more than they gave. And this moment, when they realize what they lost, becomes the answer. Your absence speaks louder than any words you could have said, and in that silence, you have already won. Conclusion. At the end of the day, the most powerful tool in any relationship is your absence. When you stop needing someone else to validate your worth and choose to live fully for yourself, you not only reclaim your own power, you create the space that makes others realize what they've lost. Your absence forces reflection, and it's through this that they begin to understand the value you brought to their life. You are worthy of a love that respects you, a life that fulfills you, and relationships that uplift you. The moment you realize that your peace and happiness are not dependent on anyone else, you become unstoppable. You become the person who is magnetically powerful because your happiness comes from within. If this video resonated with you, if you're ready to reclaim your power and start living your life fully, subscribe to the Stoic philosophy. Here, we dive deep into timeless wisdom that can help you navigate life with strength, peace, and purpose. Subscribe now and join us on a journey towards self-discovery and personal growth. Let's build a life of inner strength, peace, and true freedom together.